The average construction lawsuit costs between $50,000 and $250,000 just in legal fees alone. Hi, I'm attorney Alex Bell, and for decades, I've helped clients with construction disputes save money and resolve claims quickly. If you have a contract you want reviewed before you sign it, or you have a scope, payment, or delay claim that you want reviewed by a lawyer, give me a call today at 972-328-9615 and we'll get you taken care of today. A weak construction contract can cause any number of problems. Weak contracts look like form documents that have been recycled, contracts that have had missing or cobbled together provisions that don't work with each other, or sometimes no contract at all. It's actually not as unusual as you might think for projects to get a fairly long way along without having any signed agreement between the parties. That's a recipe for conflict, because if the parties don't have a fundamental agreement on what's being done, how much it's going to cost, and who's going to get paid and when, the issue is rife for disputes. So it's very important from the earliest outset of a project that you either have your own contractual agreement that's been reviewed and prepared for you by a lawyer that has provisions in it that are favorable for you, or that you have an experienced construction lawyer take the agreement that's been provided to you by the owner or the contractor, whoever it may be on a project, and make sure that it's modified to the extent the other party will allow to protect you and your interests. Ensuring that you have these kind of contractual protections in place will ultimately save you time and money and help you get paid so your business can thrive. Documenting everything throughout a project is critically important. And what I mean by documenting everything throughout a project is making sure that the day-to-day decisions and activities taking place on a project are recorded in written form so that if there's some dispute later about what happened, you can go back to the records and prove what you actually did or what was actually decided by another party, instead of having to rely on hazy memories or incomplete records or facts. Ambiguity is expensive. It's hard to go back and recreate people's memories or stories. You often end up with competing versions. And there's nothing wrong with that. People's memories aren't great. But what's better is if you can go back and rely upon job reports, change orders, RFIs, ASIs, the other standard documentation that's kept day to day on construction projects, and actually show what happened. Because that way, if you're really not at fault, you can show what was done and show you're not responsible. Otherwise, it may be difficult to convince the other side you did nothing wrong, and ultimately you'd have to settle a claim that you might not really be responsible for. The pattern we see most often are little disputes or conflicts that arise early on a project and don't get resolved promptly. So early on in a project, there may be a dispute about scope or about which particular item needs to be installed or how. And instead of getting fully resolved, some decisions made in a meeting on site, the parties go act in accordance with that, whether it costs extra time or money. And then at the end of the project, somebody disputes whether that money is actually owed. That is a completely avoidable problem in most circumstances. If there's a change on a project, it needs to be documented. Whether that's an RFI, an ASI, or a change order, there should be a written documentation that reflects the agreement that was reached on the project, and that includes the scope, the amount of money for the change, and the amount of time in the schedule. Without those things, it's hard to go back and prove what was actually decided. And so in most circumstances, accurate documentation that is specific and kept as the project going along is going to help you get paid and help prevent claims later. Proper documentation of resolved disputes as a project goes along is really important, because sometimes people may try to challenge those resolutions later on a project. If you've documented a change order or a resolution to a conflict properly early on a project, and someone tries to challenge it later, you have everything you need to make sure that they can't claim extra time or extra money from that issue. A properly documented and signed change order, for example, completely eliminates an issue from being disputed later. When the parties reach a resolution during the project about time or money or scope, that's dispositive. And if you haven't properly documented, someone could try to challenge it later. But if they do and you have it documented, you can just show them the proof and say, I'm sorry, this was resolved earlier, you owe us the money from this change order. The biggest mistake contractors make in the few weeks after something goes wrong on a project is not working to timely resolve the issue. The closer you are to a problem and the sooner you resolve it, usually the less expensive it is, because it's easier to make changes or revisions in a project the closer you are to the work. Waiting until the end of a project is going to add ambiguity, it's going to diminish clarity, and it's going to decrease the chances that you get paid for resolving a dispute. And so it's always important to try to drive an issue to a resolution as early as you can in a project, because ultimately it's going to save you time and it's going to save you money. The average legal dispute costs between $50,000 and $250,000. More complicated cases can cost millions of dollars in legal fees. That's why it's important that you have a knowledgeable and experienced construction lawyer help you from the very beginning of a project. From reviewing contracts to getting involved early in disputes, the value that an experienced construction lawyer can bring can save you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees down the line. If you need help with a contract or you have a payment or other dispute that comes up on a project, call us at 972-328-9615 and we can start working for you today.